If I asked you to name the primary school you attended, more than likely you'd say one or perhaps two names. What do you think of someone who attended no less than 5 primary schools, who failed common entrance 3 times? As a matter of fact, when he entered the University of the West Indies, oh yes, he was accepted, his academic performance didn't qualify him to study law, which was the profession he really wanted. Careful now, don't be judgmental. We never know until we know. Today's guest is the immediate past president of the St. Andrew Justice of the Peace Association, and guess what? He did achieve his desire to become an attorney at law. He's Peter Champagnie. Good evening. Thanks for joining for another edition of Profile. I am Faye Ellington. Peter Champagnie, thank you so much for joining me.
Absolute pleasure.
Usually you and you're in media, you're giving an opinion on the law, but today you're going to be sharing your story.
Indeed.
For heaven's sakes, why did you attend 5 primary schools?
Economic circumstances, family background, all of that. No less than 5, and lived countless places before settling at one residence.
Name the primary schools if you can remember them.
Holy Childhood Prep started there. Then I went to Yorktown Primary in Clarendon, Water Valley All Age in St. Mary, and then I went to another one I don't remember. I went then to St. Richard's Primary, where I ended up, and then moved on to Meadowbrook
Not only
High
were
School.
you moving between
Yes.
primary schools, but somewhere in rural Jamaica.
Yes, yes.
What was really happening?
St. Mary, Clarendon, back in Kingston. It really had to do with my background in terms of my mom and my father, and which is so typical of, sadly, many Jamaican families, broken family, and the struggle with a mother being a father at the same time, and had to be moving all about in Jamaica.
And there was a sister as well.
Yes, I have
How
a
did
sister.
you all cope, mom and the two of you?
It was rough. Persons may look on and say, oh, you're privileged based on your last name, but that was not the case. My mother was at the time a secretary, and then later went into farming. And farming, depending on the level you're at, it doesn't really pay. And it was hard, very hard.
Would you say there was an emotional scarring, issues with self-esteem when all of this was happening?
You would naturally have that. And then added to that, if I may, there was the domestic abuse in terms of my mom and my father, which I witnessed. And actually, even to this day, it is very hard for me sometimes to go into court and represent someone who is charged or accused for assaulting a female. It is something that I take strong exception to. It's something that I have very strong feelings for. And as a duty to my client and to be fair, I normally indicate that at the start. So it is ironic. I'd rather defend someone who is perhaps charged for far more serious crime than that. But that is the scarring that I'm talking about.
Did you ever try to protect her or prevent her from being abused?
I tried, but at that age and seeing what is happening, I suppose as a child, you couldn't get beyond the question as to why was this happening and so on. So it was difficult. And
So your
as a
dad
result,
didn't turn on you though with the abuse?
No, to be fair to him, no, he never did.
How did that affect your performance in school?
It affected it because when my mom left him, she had to be moving constantly from house to house, parish to parish, because it was that kind of relationship where there would be the seeking out and trying to.
Even after she left you?
Even after. And initially it came across as being wanting to make amends and resolve, and then it went back to the old story again. But funny enough, I have no hard feelings against him at this stage. It is what it is. And the important thing is not to repeat it, which I hear sometimes as men say, I experienced this and therefore I know nothing otherwise. That's garbage. I don't accept that. Yes.
Because you've got on with your life and you
Absolutely.
haven't lived it in that way.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely.
How did you manage with the schoolwork if you're moving from...
It was rough, and that is why the common entrance failure and the barely passed situation in terms of even high school with CXCs at the time, it was very, very difficult. It was very hard to cope. And as I said before, the economic constraints. Persons perhaps thought that, oh, he is well off because his shoes look new all the time, but it was just taking good care of them because that's the only period you have for the entire school term and even beyond a year. So it taught me, in a sense, to value things, and to care. And I carry that through to this day.
Did your teachers, any of them, understand what was happening at home and why maybe your performance was the way it was?
At the time, I didn't think so. But very recently, I met my primary school teacher, Miss Buchanan. And she indicated to me that she knew from day one what was happening and never lost faith in me. And it's a pleasure to see her. And
What school was that?
that was St. Richard's.
Ah,
St.
the last
Richard's.
primary
St.
school.
Richard's Primary. Yes,
Yeah.
yes. So at the time, no, but later on in years,
Yes.
I recognized that
So you
it was noticed.
You took the common entrance 3 times and failed it 3 times.
Could have been 4 times still, but I'm not sure.
Peter, please. But did you ever lose faith in yourself? Did you think, oh gosh, I can't do this?
It came pretty close to that because on the road that I lived at the time, I remember when the results came out the last time, my friend passed for Calabar, my friend for Georges, my friend for Jamaica College, and I didn't pass anything. And in later years, funny enough, this was a story that happened to me. I was then enrolled at the law school and in the law school library and saw somebody from my school days who had passed for Georges, and he was there and he looked shocked, wanted to know what I was doing in the library, if I was cleaning up the place or employed to the auxiliary staff. And when he recognized that I was a law student and he was but a part-time student, he was in total shock. I was shocked
We
myself
never know
to see
until
that.
we know, as I
Right.
said in
Yes.
the introduction,
Yes.
what somebody is going through. Because some people might have said, the boy lazy, he workless, not
Yes.
knowing what the circumstances
Yes.
are. So you got to Meadowbrook High School, but if you didn't pass common entrance, how did you get there?
Connections. Connections. My mother by then had developed a good reputation in the business world and as an efficient secretary, and she expressed her problems to her then boss, and through that I was able to get a place at Meadowbrook High School.
But without the foundation,
Yes.
how did you do at Meadowbrook High?
I did academically not necessarily well because the economic constraints, and I'm being very mild when I say economic constraints, continued. But it provided me with a great foundation because you had teachers then. I'm not sure about now, but you had real good teachers and the Christian principles and beliefs and so on. And that put me in good stead to just be focused. Yes.
Did you participate in any extracurricular activities, sports, debating? anything like that?
Debating and a little school politics, but that was about it. I really focused on my studies then.
And you became head boy.
Yes,
The boy
yes.
who didn't pass any
Yes,
common
yes,
entrance.
yes.
How did you achieve that?
Happened one day, the principal called me into her office and said, listen, we intend to make you head boy, but you have to try and sit one more subject because this thing with 4 subjects to your name is not sufficient. And I promised, and I chose art, did it, pass, and the rest was history at the school then, and I just never looked back.
And not looking back meant that immediately after Meadowbrook High, you headed straight to the University of the West Indies.
Yes, I did. Part-time. Started out as a part-time.
What were you studying?
History and political science.
You wanted to do law, but your grades didn't allow you to be
No,
accepted.
I couldn't even look at the law faculty then. But I was able to focus at that time. By then, my mom was settled in a place of residence that was kind of permanent, and I was focused. And then I got a upper second class honors degree in
What did you study, the first degree?
history and political science.
Well, you did some politics, school politics as well.
Well,
so you
there
were
you go.
well placed.
There you go. But I enjoyed it. I
Yeah.
enjoyed the history. I enjoyed the
So
politics.
the upper second class honors,
That was my entry.
it opened the door.
My passbook, more or less, into law.
before we go to the break, if you never got to do law, what would have happened?
I don't know. I guess perhaps then I would have perhaps migrated or gone into farming full time. I don't know.
With your mom at the time?
Probably, more than likely.
My guest is Peter Champagnie, attorney at law, justice of the peace, and he's telling you stories. Sometimes you see people at a particular place in their lives, but you never know from whence they came. We'll be right back. Please stay with us. This is Profile.